Right, hopefully you've all got a screen that says dialogue at the top and a little picture of choreograph. Somebody say yes.
Yep, we can see it, Carl.
Brilliant stuff. Right, dialogue. Dialogue's an entire subsystem inside NAO, but let's talk about what dialogue is. Yeah. Dialog is all about interaction. It's the primary interaction engine that was added into the version 2 choreograph. And it's probably the most capable and flexible piece of the entire system. So it has a chatbot style scripting language and the ability to store things in AL memory and raise events and all that good stuff that we use when we're developing applications in choreograph. Yeah. It can be used as the primary flow control methodology within an application, and I'll show you one at the end that uses that. Yeah. And using dialogue events, you can control Pepper's tablet or an external tablet on NAO. For those of you that are unaware of this, you can actually write applications that have a web interface hosted on the robot that can be displayed on an external tablet on NAO. So you can actually build an application that has NAO as its like presenter and primary focus, but has an that has a tablet web-based application that can that the user can interact with. Yeah. And for those of you that like the basic channel, which lets NAO chat and all those wonderful things, you can also make any of the dialogues that you create collaborative so that they boot up as part of the basic channel. Okay. Right. So let's look at the basic structure of a dialogue file. We're going to go and have a look in choreograph in a minute, and I'll show you where to put this. But basically, a choreograph file looks something like this. It has a topic name, and that topic name, oh, excuse me, let me go back up one. That topic name uniquely identifies that dialogue. Yep. It has a language associated with it. So ENU is English, and you have a variety of other names. So you can create a dialogue in multiple languages inside a single application and utilize it. Yep. It then has concepts, user interaction rules, and something called proposals. And we're going to go through each one of those in turn. Yeah. So the basic structure of a conversation in dialogue is that the user says something, and if the robot recognizes what the user says, it will respond. So for example, the user says, "How are you?" The robot says, "Great, how are you?" And you respond by saying you're either good or you're not good. Yeah. And that little snippet of code underneath that point on the chart actually shows how you will write that in dialogue. So the U colon, open brackets, "How are you today," in curly brackets, says how, you know, you would say, "How are you?" Or you could say, "How are you today?" because today is an optional word. And then the text outside the brackets is what the robot says in response. "I am great, thanks. How are you?" The U1 that is indented says, "I'm waiting for a response for the user." The user then says a yes or a no, or "I'm okay, I'm great, I'm super," whatever it happens to be. We have that inside a concept, which I'll explain in a moment. and the robot says, great, you look super. Or if we say we're not okay, it says, sorry to hear that, hope you feel better. Words in curly brackets are optional. Yeah. So for example, how are you? And I can optionally add the word today on the end of it. Yeah. If I don't say today, it will still match it. If I do say today, it'll match it. Yeah. And then I can also have an array of acceptable responses. So the line underneath that on the slide where I say, I would like some food. Yeah. Well, the want and would like are optional phrases. So I could say, I want some food. Or I could say, I would like some food. And both would match. A phrase where you have multiple words, you put inside quotation marks, and you end up with something that the robot can respond to. Yeah.
All right, Carl, question for you. I'm a little confused here. Are we talking Python or choreography?
We're talking about in choreograph, in dialogue. I'll show you how to create one. In fact, let's do that. Let me, let me see if I can change my sharing. Hang on a second. Let's have a quick look. There we go. Right. Can you all see a choreograph screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. Right. I'm not gonna bother to go any further than this. Yeah. Let's say that I want to create a new dialogue. Yeah. So this is a new interaction between me and the robot. Yeah. Now, down here under, and I have a feeling it's under speech. Let's have a look. There is a box that says dialogue. Yeah. Having pointed that out to you, I'm now going to tell you never, ever to use it. Yep. Because it loads a whole set of predefined parameters that are an absolute nightmare. Yeah. Your best bet is to right click on the canvas in Choreograph, go down to create new box and pick dialogue. It will ask you to pick a dialogue topic. That's the unique name for your dialogue, yeah? So in most cases, you'll go add topic, and I will call this training underscore example, okay? And I can pick a language. Now, because I'm running on a virtual robot, it only gives me English American. If you were running on a real robot, it'll give you a whole list of other languages, okay? And then I can say create. And you'll see that I get a box here, yeah? You'll also see that in my project files, I get a new folder called training example with 2 files in it. One called training example DLG and one called training example underscore ENU top. If I had picked a different language, for example, Italian as Gianni's here, that might be training example ITI, yeah? That changes depending upon the language you've got. If I double click the top box, it actually lets me get into the text. So for example, I could uncomment these 2 lines. And when I ran it, if I said, hello, hi, good morning, greetings, or hey to the robot, he would reply with either hello, hi, hey, good morning, or greetings. He'd randomly pick one.
Check out this music station on YouTube Music.
So that's where you create your dialogue. Does that answer your question, Gary? That's scary. The silence was deafening.
You have to unmute Gary. I think Gary's having problems with his
Right. I'm
virtual
going to
assistant.
assume that Gary got that. Yeah.
Yep, I'm good. It triggered my Google
Oh,
microphone
right.
device.
Okay.
It was talking. I had to go shut it up and smash the thing.
I fully appreciate where you're coming from. I hate it when that happens. Yeah.
So just real quick, back to don't use the dialogue choice in
Right.
choreograph.
Don't use the box that appears in the box menu. Right click on the canvas and pick create new box dialog. Yeah.
So if you do use dialogue, what are the restrictions? The one that's built in.
Right. The restrictions are that it tries to name it and it tries to set up a whole bunch of defaults that in reality are a complete pain in the backside. Yeah.
Okay.
So what it will do is it will create this pre-configured conversation for you
Oh,
that it's really difficult to rename and all the rest of it, and it just becomes problematic. Yeah.
so it loses flexibility.
It loses flexibility. Where
Okay.
if you right click and say create new box dialog, yeah, what it'll actually do is it will walk you through the 2 or 3 dialog boxes where it asks you to name it and sort of some basic stuff like what languages you want to use and that. And it then gives you basically a blank canvas that you can work on. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not quite sure I've got these slides in the right order, having been through this 2 or 3 times, but we'll do it. Are you guys aware of the fact that you can annotate anything that NAO says so that you can change things like the pitch, the speed, the emphasis, pauses that you might put in and things like that?
Really valuable information. I've got a hint of it, but not in the degree. I can see from the slide you put up, there's a lot more nuance that would be so good. Because when you see applications that have been written, you think, how the hell did they get that? Well, this is obviously the way.
Right. So this is the thing. This works in Dialog. It also works in a say box or an animated say box. So, for example, I think that now pauses, the pause that he does for a full stop is too short. And I personally like him to pause a little bit longer. So I'll write, hello, how are you? And I'll give it a full stop. And he might say something after that. But I want him to pause a little bit longer. So after the full stop, I just put \PAU equals and a value in milliseconds for how long I want him to pause. If I want him to speak slower, I just put an RSPD equals 80 or 85 or 90, and he speaks at 90% of his standard speed. Yeah. And as I say, this works in Dialog and it also works outside. We'll come back to the little bit about calling functions in a minute. Yeah. The problem with trying to build something that feels like a natural conversation is that if I ask you a yes/no question, there are lots of ways you could answer it. You could answer it as yes, yeah, sure. I actually had somebody I worked with that whenever you asked him a yes/no question and it was yes, he said absolutely. Yeah. Equally happens with no. Yeah. Somebody could say no, definitely not at all. Yeah. Whole different variety of ways that they can say no. Well, what a concept lets you do is a concept lets you define a group of responses that can all be assigned to a single concept. Yeah. So knowing that our user interaction is you say something, and then the robot responds, and the robot asks a question that it's waiting for a response to. So our U1 may have a yes or a no in it. Yeah. So when I respond yes, my yes could, in this example, could be yes, yeah, yep, or sure. But I only have to put U1 colon open brackets tilde yes close brackets.
Sorry to interrupt, Carl, but do you want to switch back to your slides? I'm not sure if you're
Oh, are you not seeing my slides?
you're still showing choreograph.
So there you go. That's something I've completely messed up then. Let me see if I can switch back, Dave. Sorry. Thank you for telling me. This has all gone radically wrong. Is that better?
That's it. Perfect.
Right, great. I probably need to go back. Well, hang on, back up. We all saw that one with the control pitches in it, yeah?
Originally, yes.
Yeah, good. So concepts. Concepts let me define a single word that represents many answers. Yeah. So we'll look at some examples at the in a minute, and I will let you see what those examples are. Okay. Oh, let me go back up. There we go. Oh, one too many. So concepts. One word, multiple acceptable answers. Okay. We also have proposals. So proposals are repeatable pieces of conversation. They kind of act a bit like a programming subroutine or go-to, more like a go-to because they don't ever actually come back. Yeah. So anybody that used to play around with BASIC, where you go to X and it had never come back, that's what a proposal does. Yeah. The interesting thing with a proposal is that they only run once. Once they've run once, the dialogue system invalidates them and won't allow them to run again unless they are reactivated. Okay. And these allow for more complex conversations to be built that give a natural flow or contextual flow to them. Yep. And the easy way you define it, and I'll show you an example in a minute, is that each proposal is defined with a proposal name. So you do proposal colon percent and its name, and then what you want the robot to say. And you can have responses and everything inside those. Yeah. This will become a bit clearer when we look at an example. Yeah. You can also store data into AL memory. Yep. So here is a complete dialogue. So we define a concept called Beatles. Yeah. That concept includes the responses John, Paul, Ringo, and George. When the application starts, we'll talk about event starts in a moment. But when the dialog box starts, now actually says, pick your favorite Beatle. You say John, Paul, Ringo, or George. If it was me, I'd probably say Ringo. Yeah. That's what this piece, the tilde Beatles, does. It says, accept a response that is one of these four names. The underscore in front of it tells it to store it into AL memory. It stores it because it's the first one that we've called. Oh, let me page back up. Because it's the first one we've called, it stores it as $1. So now says, oh, wow, I like Ringo too. And then this $example fave beetle equals $1 says store in AL memory under example fave beetle, whatever my response was. Now, when it stores that into memory, it also raises a micro event. Now, micro events and events are subtly different, but nothing for you to ever worry about. You can subscribe to a micro event just the same way that you can subscribe to a normal event. So inside choreograph, I can also trigger something to happen when that example fave beetle is updated, yeah? And I can also read the value that was put into AL memory. And that data that I've pushed into AL memory will remain in memory until either I change it programmatically or the robot is powered off. So it's sort of like a persistent short-term memory. Events, right. Dialog elements can be triggered by AL memory events as well as by verbal interaction. So I could have a dialogue where I walk up to the robot, it sees me, I say, hello, and it says, hello, how are you? Yeah. But I could equally have a dialogue where the robot starts the conversation. And that would be in an application where the application runs, the dialogue loads, and you may see that one of the events here is E:(on start. That's a standard event. Every time a dialogue starts, it fires the E:(on start. So I can capture that inside the user interaction part. And now we'll say, hello, my name is Now. So as soon as he loads that dialogue, that's what he says, yeah?
Yeah.
I can also capture other events. You know, the good old touch sensor on the top of Now's head? That has a front, a middle and a rear section. If I want to capture when somebody touches either the front or the middle of his head sensor, I've got events called front tactile touch and middle tactile touch. If I touch either of those, Now we'll say you touch my head. Your program can also raise events, yeah? And those events can cause dialogue to start an interaction. So let's imagine at the moment that my Now is sitting in my house. He's connected to my Internet of Things heating system with some sort of API, yeah? So he's being fed temperature information about my house. My house gets too cold. So when my house drops below a certain temperature, the program on Now raises an event called house cold. In Dialog, we can have an event called house cold. When that event triggers, Now we'll say it's getting cold. I'll turn on the heating, and he then raises an event called house heating and gives it a value of 1. So in my program sitting on Now, that tells Now to send a message to my heating system to turn my heating on.
Wow.
That's one line of code, assuming you've got the APIs around the outside of it, where Now is informed of the temperature by the event coming from the external system, and then can turn on the heating to mitigate that event. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. Wow.
I'll be honest with you, I love Dialog and I love AL memory. I think they are so powerful, it's unbelievable, yeah? How many of you run the basic channel on your robots?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good idea. It makes now a little bit more interactive, makes him a bit more alive. You can ask him silly questions like, where are you from, and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you can write your own dialogue, and that dialogue can have whatever you like in it as far as questions are concerned and responses. And when you create that dialogue, you'll see that when you pick your language, right at the bottom, it says, add to the package content as collaborative dialogue. That doesn't really mean very much, yeah? What it really means is add this to the basic channel.
Oh.
So on your robot, when you reboot it, whatever you had going on in that particular dialogue will pop up and be part of the basic channel. So the example that I give is you could create a dialogue about your hometown. And you could have a phrase in there that says, if the user says, tell me about where you live, now talks about your hometown, yeah? If you make it a collaborative dialogue, you boot now up, he engages with you, his eyes go blue, you say, tell me about where you live, and he actually tells you about where he's living, yeah? So you can create your own dialogues.
Now, is that, excuse me, Carl, is that stored on the Aldebaran server?
No, it's stored on your robot.
So I thought the basic channel was an interface to the Aldebaran server.
No, no, it's not at all. Yeah. What happens with the basic channel is the basic channel, when you subscribe to the basic channel, it actually downloads the whole basic channel to your robot.
Okay.
In fact, there's a document in the NAO Enthusiast group on Facebook that includes all the files that I ripped off my robot and a hacked package management database, which means you can install the basic channel on a robot that can't connect to Aldebaran's server.
So once it's downloaded, you're not accessing the server anymore.
Nope, you're not accessing the server anymore. In fact, the basic channel will run when you have no Wi-Fi connection.
So what is the server ever accessed?
No,
It's not. Okay.
no.
Only if you want to download something,
Yep, only if you
And-
want to download something new.
but everything is done locally
Yes,
on the robot.
yes.
So you really don't need the Aldebaran server. So if Aldebaran goes out of business, we're going to be,
Yeah, we're fine.
we're
we're
still going to
fine.
be fine. Okay.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons that we worked out the hack to get the basic channel running on robots that couldn't get a connection to the cloud.
Right.
Because one of the members on the Facebook group was told by RoboLabs in the States that version 4 robots were no longer allowed to connect to the cloud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether that's true or not.
Well, I just connected two V4s to the basic channel and updated everything.
Right.
So they are,
This is my issue. We got conflicting stories from different sources. Yeah.
yep.
But the fact of the matter was that person couldn't get the basic channel running on their robot.
Right.
So what we did was I took all of the basic channel applications that were on my robot. I copied them off my robot, sent them to them. They loaded them onto their robot just using secure FTP, and they got the basic channel on their robot.
Right.
Yeah. You don't need a cloud connection for that. It's purely for the install of those dialogues. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. And you know what? If you connect Choreograph to your robot, you will see in the list of installed applications that comes up in the sort of lower right hand corner, you'll see a whole load of them that say things like dialogue _ something. Yeah. they're all the basic channel.
Okay.
Okay. Right, I'm gonna stop the boring bit of this, and I'm gonna try and share a different screen here. Let's pop back to here. Right, I wanted to give you an example. I'm going to get rid of that box, and I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. I wanted to give you an example of a dialogue in an application. Yeah. So here we go. We've got choreograph running here. Yeah. I have a dialogue called food stuff. So I'm going to close the training one because we don't need it. And I'm going to open up food stuff, and we're going to go into it. Yeah. So if we look at this dialogue, it's called food stuff. It's in English. I have a concept called food, where it accepts fruit, chicken, beef, or eggs. Yeah, as a food type. I've got a concept called okay, which accepts good, great, okay, fine. And I've got a concept called not okay, which accepts tired, bad, lousy, and down. Yeah. Here we have an event. As soon as I run this application, that event will fire, and our now will say, welcome to our chat. Once it said welcome to our chat, it's waiting for me to say either I want some, how are you today, or to touch its head sensors. Yeah. So let's look at I want some food. So that I want some food phrase, I can either say I want some, and then it's expecting an input that matches something in the concept food. Fruit, chicken, beef, eggs. So I can say, I want some eggs. That will match. And he'll say, sure, I will get, I'll get that for you. You must like $1. Well, we've got the underscore in front of the concept, so it's been stored in memory. So $1 must be what I said, so it will say eggs. Yeah. I would like chicken will also match, because would like's inside our acceptable list of words. Some is an optional word, and chicken is in our concept. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
David, or Carl, excuse me, can this be run in simulation, or do you have to do it on a real robot?
I will show you that in just a second. You can run it in simulation.
Okay.
It's a really great way to test dialogues. Yeah. I've got a second possible thing that I can say to the robot. How are you? And I can optionally say today, and he will say, I'm great, thanks. How are you? And I can either say one of my okay phrases, good, great, okay, fine, or one of my not okay phrases, tired, bad, lousy, down, and he will respond appropriately. So you were saying, can it be run in simulation? I really hope, I can't see the visual of my robot here, yeah? But you'll see that I have a box at the bottom of my screen called Dialog, yeah? So the theory goes that if I run this, no, I'm not connected. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can connect to a virtual robot here. That's a little bit better. Right, I'm connected to a virtual robot now, yeah? So if I run this on my virtual robot, yeah, we'll save all the files. You'll see that my robot in my dialog window at the bottom just said, welcome to our chat. So if I now say, I want some eggs. Sure, I'll get you that. You must like eggs. Yeah? How are you? I'm great, thanks. How are you? Bad. Sorry to hear that. Hope you feel better. Now, if we go back to our dialogue, every response that we got from the robot equates to what we had defined in here. Eggs is part of our food type. Food is our concept here. I would like some eggs. Sure, I'll get that for you. You must like eggs. How are you? I'm great. How are you? I said bad, which is in our concept. He said, sorry to hear that. Hope you feel better. I'm gonna open one other application for you to see. Yes, you can stop that running. Right. This is actually a Pepper application. It will run on now, but to get the interfaces to work properly, you would need to have a tablet that you also connected to NAO. And that's a totally different subject, and we can cover that on another occasion. Yeah. But this basically is an application where NAO will ask you half a dozen questions about your preferences. What do you like to eat? What do you like to drink? What do you like the smell of? And then he will recommend a bottle of wine for you. This was actually done for a client. They were a retail organization, and they wanted to put Pepper in their wine department, recommending wines. Yeah. But this is a little bit bigger application. Yeah. So first of all, on our on start, we raise an event. We raise wine selector dialog started equals 1. That raises an event. Yeah. That just tells the application that the dialog is loaded and ready to go. Yeah. Then in our application, we do some setup, and then our application raises an event which says, oh, there's a person here ready to interact with me. So it raises an event called wine selector start intro. Okay. And that triggers our robot to say either hi, hello, or hey. We're randomizing the phrase there. So it picks one of those 3 phrases. So let's say it says, hello, I'm going to ask you a few few questions about your tastes, and then I will suggest a wine you might like to try. Do you remember I said proposals had to be reactivated? Well, if you do a go to reactivate, you can reactivate any proposal. So I've got a proposal called red and white. So I reactivate that. I jump to it. Here's our red and white proposal. He says, do you prefer red or white wine? Now, if I say red, I go to reactivate coffee. If I say white, he says, oh, nice, and go to reactivate cocktail. Now I'm going to do coffee because it's immediately underneath it. Here's our proposal for coffee. How do you take your coffee? My options are black with milk, with cream, or I don't drink coffee. Yeah? I don't drink coffee. So that immediately stores that information in memory, and it goes to chocolate. So here's chocolate. Do you prefer milk or dark chocolate? And my answers can be dark or milk. So if I say dark, it stores dark in memory, jumps to morning drink. And it takes me through a whole series of questions, storing all of those answers in memory. Let's have a quick look. Dave talked about state machines. Here's an example of a state machine, yeah? So I initialize and set up, and then I wait for a person to approach. So wait for a person to approach. This is a Pepper application, although Pepper and NAO both have these. There's something called engagement zones. If a person walks into an engagement zone, the robot will trigger an event associated with it. Yeah. So what I'm saying is if a person walks up to me and they're 1.5 meters away from me, I'll start talking to them. Yeah. So in start, I raise a micro event, and that micro event is called start intro. If we go back to our dialogue, there's an event called start intro. So when that person walks up and the robot realizes they're there, that event triggers and the robot says, "Hi, I'm going to ask you a few questions." Yeah. It then sits there and goes through the entire dialogue. Yeah. And it stores all of that person's preferences into AL memory. And then there's a really horrible, because this was only done as a demo, it wasn't a production app. There's a really, really horrible piece of Python script here, which you can see, you know, if coffee is black, if chocolate is dark, if morning drink is smoothie, and if dessert is pie, this is the wine. If dessert is tiramisu, this is the wine. Yeah. And it carries on through every possible connotation of all the answers to all the questions. But at the end of it, it comes up with the wine. And when it comes up with the wine, now pops up, in fact, it was Pepper, pops up a picture on its tablet of the bottle of wine and tells you all about it. Yeah, this wine this wine has been made, pause for 200 milliseconds, by blending selected fruit from across the Barossa. So I can actually integrate dialogue so that it becomes the key driving force in my application. And it also can change the dynamic, because I'm using things like engagement zones and people tapping on tablets and starting the interaction. I can put now in charge of the conversation. So rather than not knowing what somebody's going to say to the robot, I can actually have the robot ask a question as the first thing that happens in the conversation, which immediately means that I'm in control of the conversation. And I can now guide it down whatever route I like. So I can build a guided conversation that drives the user to the goal that I want them to come back to me with. Yeah. I hope that made sense. I hope everybody's not asleep. Is probably one of the most powerful tools that's on now. And it's really simple, really simple.